What gave you that thing to say, hey man, watch world, something that drives you? What was yours?
My early one was watching people in therapy for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And when I got involved with NLP, seeing it could be done in minutes. And I used to destroy therapists. I used to attack them. Now I've trained, literally hundreds of thousands of them.
Got it.
In fact, they can watch my stuff now and get credits to remain a therapist, even though I'm not a therapist myself.
So that drove you, actual therapist.
It was that, because I was so mad that somebody would be 10 years still dealing with a problem that I knew could be dealt with in a day or two, or an hour or two.
I got it.
And so I remember I got on a radio show in Vancouver, and I went on the show, and I didn't know it was a shock jock. I didn't know what a shock jock was then. And so the guy starts, setting me up and attacking me and saying, well, how old are you? And you don't have a degree, and how are you going to do this? And he just starts going after me in every way you possibly can. And then he brings a psychiatrist on who starts attacking me verbally, because he said, there's no way you can wipe things out as fast as you're saying. There's just absolutely no way. You're a liar. You're a charlatan. Yeah. This is on national radio. Mm-hmm. And so my competitiveness came out in that moment very intensely. And so I turned to the guy and I very calmly said over the radio, I said, sir, are you a scientist? He said, of course, I'm a physician. I said, good. So if you're a scientist, you must be stating your hypothesis, because your hypothesis is I'm a liar and a charlatan, because you've never met me, right? You never met my clients. So you can only tell me what you believe. I said, so if you have a hypothesis and you're a true scientist, you have to test it, right? And the voice goes, yeah. And I said, well, I'm doing a free guest event at the Holiday Inn tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I'm going to do a series of demonstrations. I suggest you come and prove I'm a charlatan. Bring me one of your worst patients. Bring me somebody that you've worked on for years not being able to change. I said, I'm sure you got plenty of those. You want to play hardball? I can play hardball, especially in those days. Yeah. I'm a lot softer today. But I was still proving myself to myself and other people, I think, at that stage. You're immature, so I was intense. And so the guy goes, we all have people that aren't ready to change yet. I said, well, that's funny. I haven't found any. Of course, I'd done 4 therapies at that point, but I didn't mention that, right? And he goes, well, I have this one woman, she has this snake phobia. She goes to sleep at night. She has a dream that snake bites her in the face. And if you ever had an intense dream like that, it fires off your adrenal glands and you wake up. How often? 3 to 5 times a night. How many years you been treating her? 7 years. I said, bring her down. That should take me 10 or 15 minutes. And I said it directly. And that guy goes, ah! And the guy cuts him off, says, see you right at the Holiday Inn. So I show up the next day at the Holiday Inn. I'm hoping in those days to get, 150 people to show up for a free guest event. 500 people show up. I mean, there's not seating in a room. People are standing on the walls. If the fire department comes
just to see,
because they want to see the shootout.
That's
at
right.
OK Corral.
Yeah, that's right.
Me and this guy.
Does
right?
he shows up?
He shows up, but he's not there. I'm looking around, and I don't know. Do you do this when I meet somebody on the phone? I can't help it. I make a picture of mine what I think
what
they
look like.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm picturing, be there. I'm picturing this giant guy with a scared woman on his arm, right? And I'm looking for something. Nobody like that. So I get up to introduce myself in those days. Hi, I'm Tony Robbins. I said, I'm going to do some demonstrations today to show you can make changes in minutes you thought would take months or years. And right when I say this, the side door bursts open like a movie. And this guy about, half my size up to here walks in with this woman on his arm, walks straight to the front and stands there while I'm speaking. And I go, excuse me, looks like I have a visitor. I just go down and shake his hand. He wouldn't shake my hand. He just goes, here's the woman. And my whole career was made in that moment. I brought her on stage and I said, ma'am, I understand you've had certain phobias to certain things for a period of time. How do you feel about snakes? And I shouted it. If you've ever seen a phobia, it's not just fear, it's uncontrollable shaking response. And then I calmed her down and I said, and you've been treated for 7 years by that psychiatrist right there? And she goes, yeah. And I said, okay. And then I started doing this work. It took me about 15 minutes. And when I was done, everybody's watching the whole thing. I said, how do you feel about snakes? No response. I was totally fine. I said, that's great. So I've always been about demonstration to make it really clear. So there's a piece back here on the table and I grab this bag and I pull the bag out and the bag's moving slightly underneath and the people in the audience see it and they start to anticipate. And I pull out just a little gardener snake, pull the gardener snake in front of her. And instead of screaming or shaking, she knew that she just pulled back. And I said, how do you feel? She goes, they're not very attractive. And I said, well, I know you feel some fear, but notice there's no spitting, no shaking. You're not screaming. I said, why don't you hold it? She goes, I don't know. And the audience starts going, hold it. Hold it, hold it. It's like a movie, man. You can't make this stuff up. And so finally the lady grabs it, squeezes the snake. Yeah. I said, don't kill it, right? And so that launched my career. So then every night I was doing a different type of event. I had every kind of change you can imagine. And I started doing these impossible interventions. I'll do one session. I don't care what it is. You're addicted. It's something. I'll turn around and you pay me nothing. And it was $1,000 in those days, which was a huge amount of money, So, but I did it to put it on the line. I'm putting myself in line. If I don't get a result, you don't get anything. And that's how I built it. And then I had a woman had an orgasm in 10 years, and I gave an orgasm without touching her. And guys are like, can you teach me to do that when I'm tired? And then I started working with sports teams. And then all of a sudden,
you literally sat down with a lady who hadn't had an orgasm for 10 years, and you taught her how to do it without touching her.
I didn't teach her. I didn't touch her. I eliminated the barrier that she had.
What was the barrier?
In her head, she was constantly analyzing every single moment. Well, a woman is very different than a man. They can't have that experience unless they let go completely. So I got her to let go completely and then experience the joy that she'd wanting to have. But she had all these blockages, all the pain of other relationships, problems. It was complex.
Sure.
But it took me about 45 minutes to do it. But when I started doing that, then I had all of a sudden politicians. I had sports teams.
Not politicians needing help with orgasm, just politicians calling for other reasons.
Well, they might have needed that also. But that's not what I helped them with. By nature, they're politicians, so I'm sure they don't have that many orgasms, right? But all of a sudden, I'm working with Olympic athletes in 1984 in LA. That's how long I've been doing this. And the guy I worked with wasn't supposed to win the team, and he ended up winning the 1500 freestyle and swimming, and that gave me another notch, and then the Army, and then all of a sudden work with Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa and Gorbachev and Clinton, and I'm only 32, so I'm going to be 65 in about 30 days here. So it's been 48 years of that continued growth and expansion.